Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. In this video, I will present about the corruption. Before I started, I will introduce my group member. First, Muhammad Nur Rashid Hakimi Baranshidi. Second, Wan Muhammad Nur Rahman bin Wan Zakaria. Third, Aida Sahira binti Nur Muhammad. Fourth, Sharifah Adrianis binti Syed Muhammad Ridwan. And the last one, Siti Nur Ashikin binti Ahmad Sahlan.
Economies that are deeply affected by a high level of corruption, which happens to involve the abuse of power in the form of money or authority to accomplish the goals in illegal, deceitful, or unjustified ways, they are not capable of prospering as fully as those with a low level of corruption. Corrupted financial systems are unable to operate effectively because bribery prevents natural economic principles from operating freely. As an outcome, corruption in a country's political and economic operations negatively affects the entire society. Corrupt practice weakens trust in federal government and the democratic system. This is worrisome throughout the world, but especially in circumstances of fragility and violence, because corruption feeds and continues to perpetuate the disparities and discontent that lead to fragility and violent extremism. Corruption is the misuse of entrusted power for personal benefit. It can diminish trust, undermines democracy, stifles economic development, and exacerbates inequality, poverty, social division, and the environmental crisis. Exposing corruption and holding corrupt people accountable is only possible if we understand how corruption works and the system that supports it. Besides that, corruption can manifest itself in a variety of ways. For example, public employees who demand or accept money or favors in exchange for services. Next, politicians abusing public funds or awarding public jobs or contracts to their supporters, friends, and families. And lastly, corporations bribing officials in order to secure lucrative deals.
Factors that influences the development of corruption. First, political and economic environment. Second, professional ethics and legislation. Third, habits, custom, traditions, and demography.
Thank you, my friend, for the explanations before. Next, I will proceed to the factor that influence the development of corruption. The first factor that influence the development of corruption is political economic environment. For the definitions, a corporation required a positive, stable political environment to function well. The economic environment of the country is built on its political landscape. A corporation should include the political environment when developing its strategy, which is political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal analysis. A company's growth and performance will be influenced by the economic environment in which it operates. Numerous variables are referring to as an economic environment because they might affect how consumers and businesses behave in the marketplace. These aspects are not within a company's control, hence they are difficult or impossible to be managed. Next, I will continue my presentation on example of corruption in the political and economic environment. The following are countries where corruption has occurred and the case has taken the public by surprise. First case, it's happened in Great Britain. It's happened during the reign of the Conservative Party under the leadership of John Major, who has interfered with the case of cash for question issues. Next, Italy, which is political corruption, which has been turned into a systematic corruption by one of the businessmen in Italy, where he found the political party in 1993 until 1994 and appointed his staff as the leader of this party. Next is United States, where the former president of the country was caught up in the Whitewater scandal. This case refers to how he received funds while re-elected as president for a second term in 1996. Last case, it happened in Malaysia, which is Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim as illustrations of a corruption case that changed the political climate on the nation.
For this part, I will discuss on how professional ethics and legislation influence the development of corruption. Professional ethics are standards that represent a person's or group's social behavior in a business setting. Professional ethics such as value sets guidelines for how a person should communicate or interact with people in such an environment. Legislation is meant by having the authority to make laws or relating towards the act or process through which laws are made. Corruption is a serious problem in Malaysia. Corruption can also easily develop by the lack of professional ethics and legislation. The economy corrupts as the one who holds the public power can control the money for its own private benefit. Other than that, even those in superior courts and subordinate courts are involved in corruption, including the federal judge, juries, and lawyers. SPRM now must develop new methods and more focused action strategy so that law enforcement can provide results and impact to the community, especially in case involving the leakage of government funds. They should pay attention to corruption in the procurement, enforcement, and grand corruption sectors involving the high-level profile. The government needs to work harder to fight corruption and punishment for corrupt offenders. The government should propose relevant laws to impose harsher penalties on both those who give and those who accept bribes in fraud. Tougher penalties should be given for those who violate the laws, including private companies.
Habits, customs, traditions, and demography are also the factor that influence the development of corruption. Habits is a behavior that is good for one's physical or mental health and is frequently associated with having a lot of self-control and discipline. Custom is a way of doing something that is regularly accepted in a specific community, area, or period. Traditions is the passing down of traditions or belief from one generation to another. Demography is the study of change in a population, birth, marriage, and death rates across time in a specific location. A quick thank you in the form of a present for service provided after service providers have already been paid with money is regarded as a simple expression of civility. Everything derived from ethics and morals, which vary greatly throughout place and nation. The majority of the time, corruption is enabled by a mix of many causes that interact with one another. A small family or group that looks out for one another's needs is a sort of informal social security that is connected to some type of corruption, where the influence of the extended family are still very strong, such as social form of security occurs. Progress also may be achieved through reducing power disparities, enhancing individual freedom in daily life, promoting the understanding that everyone has the same right to freedom regardless of membership in a group, and restricting higher powers in society, the economy, and politics.
A model country that is successful in controlling corruption and comparing the steps taken in those countries with the steps in Malaysia. For our group, we decided to take Japan as the role country because Japan is the one of the least corrupt country in the world. However, according to JAN, there is traditional practice known as amakudari of assign retired government official to top position within Japanese company. Amakudari employees are particularly common in the financial, construction, transportation, and pharmaceutical industry. For the step taken by Japan is first penalty, where natural individual convicted of foreign public official bribery under the UCPA face up to 5 years in jail, a fine of 5 million yen, about $45,000 of both. Next is whistleblowing. The Whistleblower Protection Act provide whistleblower with intensive protection. This protection includes the reversal of the whistleblower dismissal and the prohibition of unfavorable treatment, such as demotion or wage decrease, if the consequence of the result of the whistleblowing. Next is data privacy. According to Japan Protection of Personal Information Act, restriction of the treatment of personal information will not be applied in case where the handling of personal information is required for cooperating with a state organ, a local government, or an individual or a business operator entrusted by either of the former to carrying out the affair prescribed by law and regulation, and obtaining the person concerned is likely to impede the execution of the affair. Next is anti-money laundering law, where the act of the prevention of the transfer of criminal proceeds apply to certain business such as a bank, insurance company, attorney, and accountant with relation to benefit or money acquired from organized crime or drug-related offence. Such designated entity of required by the act to authenticate the identification of customer when completing certain transactions, as well as to develop and maintain a record customer and identity and transaction. For next is enforcement agency. Normally, police agency investigate bribery charge and public prosecutor indict the accused in this bribery instance. Public prosecutor will personally examine some bribery instances involving a high-ranking official. The next step is disclosure and privilege. In Japan, there is no such thing as a legal professional privilege. The confidential of information shared between defense counsel and detained client. On the other hand, if safeguarded under the Code of Criminal Procedure, the provision allow defense counsel to interact with the defendant in private, away from other people, such as police officer or officer of the detention facility. However, if police get a warrant from a court, they can collect document or other evidence relating to conversation between the defendant and their attorney. How Malaysia can follow Japan to control corruption? For me, first boost the governance reform, where the NACP cover the government anti-corruption tactic and initiative, as well as steps to promote governance, integrity and openness in government operation. For the step is strengthening the parliament, where reintroducing the parliament service of 1963 to provide parliament greater independence and autonomy in order to maintain check and balance of the executive functioning. Next is asset declaration. The asset declaration policy has now been implemented for all executive and is been extended to member of parliament. The asset declaration data is now available on the MACC website. The next step is to currently that it is extended to all elected MP. Next is Prime Minister tenure. The idea to restrict the Prime Minister tenure to no more than 2 terms necessitated amending the federal constitution, which has yet to begin. Another one is procurement reform. Effort on different procurement reform are on track, with the Procurement Act set to be introduced in Parliament in 2020. Next is strengthening the judiciary, where special court have been formed to speed corruption proceeding. Next is strengthening the electoral system. The Election Commission is assessing the whole electoral system, including the political fundraising, with the goal of disclosing of political donor. Next is Independent Police Complaint and Misconduct Commission, or IPCMC. The draft IPCMC bill is being discussed with the Attorney General Chamber. Next is Ombudsman. The Ombudsman Act, which is still in draft form, is intended to replace the Public Complaint Bureau in order to improve the administration of public complaint in Malaysia. Next is reform of government-linked company (GLC). The Minister of Finance is completing criteria of the nomination of senior management, judgment, board of directors in GLC and subsidiary company, including a prohibition of a political appointment in GLC. Next is support letter. A new regulation prohibit lawmaker from sending support letter for government tender and project. And last is Organisation Anti-Corruption Plan or ACP and Anti-Bribery Management System ABMS. All government agencies are required to have a OACP unique to their workflow, and in the installation of ABMS has been started government-wide following a trial project last year.
Advanced technology innovation are useful in fighting the corruption problems. How technology can be used to reduce or even prevent the corruption problems? First, the technology should be used for the data collection. The data that should be collected to prevent corruption is such as the government budget, the politician asset, and others that related with the taxpayer money. The collected data then should be always monitored. The monitoring process is very important to ensure the cash flow of any account does not come or go into suspicious account. If there are any suspicious transaction happens, an investigation needs to be conducted. Some of the data also can be shared to the public. With this way, the people will have more faith in the transparency of the authority. Other than that, corruption can be prevented if everyone can monitor the important data. Lastly, the technology also should be used to become a reporting platform of a corruption. Smartphone is a must for everyone in this day. If the corruption crime can be easily reported with a smartphone, the corruption problem of course can be reduced or even be prevented.
For the conclusion part, based on the Karl Popper, corruption is the unethical and harmful to the social, economic and political advancement of a society. How should institutions be set up to guard against the negative effect that weak leader can have? There is no overreaching or obvious method to stop the corruptions of the heavyweight. It is not about bringing Western-style democracy as we know it, because it has repeatedly demonstrated that doing so has more negative effect than positive one. I think that's all from our group. Thank you.